A new twist this morning in the story of Colin Kaepernick boycotting the national anthem. The Santa Clara, California Police Union says its officers may stop working 49ers home games. About 70 officers volunteer to work them during the season. For the second game in a row, Kaepernick chose not to stand during the national anthem. The quarterback has been criticized by fans and on social media, saying he is dishonoring the U.S. flag. But a group of veterans is now getting behind him, writing an open letter in his favor of his right to silent protest. I'm joined now by one of the authors of that letter, which was just posted on Medium.com, U.S. Army veteran Richard Allen Smith. And sir, welcome and thank you for taking the time to talk to me. First of all, your reaction to police perhaps boycotting these games?
I would hope that police would be more concerned about their brothers and sisters out in the streets, the way that they're treating African Americans in America more so than whether or not one individual on one football team is standing or sitting. Okay.
Let's get right to the point behind this letter. What made you decide to write it?
Well, after Colin Kaepernick started with his protest, there were a lot of folks, of course, on social media, on YouTube and whatnot, burning jerseys and doing all sorts of other things to condemn his action. And sort of lots of them invoking the troops and military service and saying that was disrespectful. And we wanted to put something out there to counter that, to say not only do we support Colin Kaepernick's right, that's a right that we fought for or pledged to defend with our lives if necessary, but also there is a serious issue with systematic racism in America. And we need to address that, and it's a good thing that Colin Kaepernick brought attention to it.
At this point, though, big picture or little picture, is this really addressing the Black Lives Matter movement, for example, or Kaepernick himself?
Well, I think it's both. I support Colin Kaepernick in his right, but a lot of the conversation has been about whether Colin Kaepernick should stand up or sit down or what have you, and sort of missing the forest for the trees and saying, listen to what Colin Kaepernick is saying. Black Lives Matter, right? That's something that we, unfortunately, as much as we've heard it in the past several years as it's become a movement, we aren't hearing it enough, and we aren't seeing that sentiment reflected, especially in law enforcement in a lot of places.
Beyond what he has said as the reasoning to why he is sitting during the national anthem, you may be aware that during training camp, Kaepernick has worn socks of caricatures of police officers. Do you think ridiculing the police really sends the right message?
I think it's focusing on the wrong thing for us to talk about a pair of socks instead of talking about Tamir Rice, a 12-year-old child who was murdered by police, and then we know between the camera and the official police report that the cops lied about that. We're not talking right now about Sandra Bland, who's dead today because of falsified logs and illegal traffic stop. We're not talking about Philando Castile, who was shot while complying with police instructions. We're not talking about Eric Gardner, who was strangled to death on the streets of New York for selling loose cigarettes. You know, we could go on. I'm sure you don't have time in the segments.
Yeah,
but
and
I would like to devote
Richard,
a lot more time to that than talking about one person's socks.
Well, I will say, Richard, we have devoted a significant amount of time on this network to each of those individuals and the issue. That said, what he is doing with the socks, there is a statement. This is a guy who's all about statement right now. I mean, so you think he's got a motive behind wearing those socks, don't you?
I certainly do, and I don't think the motive is look at my socks. It's let's talk about all of the people in America who are being systematically oppressed.
What about more players getting involved now? Do you think that's going to make a difference?
I hope so. It's certainly bring attention to the issue, and you know, we say in our letter that we may not all choose to protest in the same way as Colin Kaepernick, as much as we respect and honor the action that he's taken. So if more football players or any other athletes want to participate in the same way as Colin Kaepernick, I absolutely support that. And by the way, I'm speaking for myself here today. What's in the text of the letter, that's what my colleagues signed on to. I'm speaking on behalf of myself here. But I think I would just ask that everyone take a look at what's happening to African Americans and people of color in this country. Well, and find your own way to challenge that. If that's, you know, it's some way related to our national symbols and national traditions, and you feel that's the best way for you to advocate, then do that. If there's another way for you to do that, do what you feel comfortable with. All right. Let's just not turn a blind eye to what's happening in America to people of color.
And in that regard, your point is very, very well taken. Army veteran Richard Allen Smith behind that letter. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.